Welcome back to Heart of Utah. My name is Colby Walker, and I am very glad that you are here. Now, it has been a wild last couple of months, and with everything that's going on, and it doesn't feel like it's going to slow down anytime soon. But in the midst of all of this craziness, there's also a lot of good news that's happening too, and I want to share with you some of the goodness that's out there. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Earlier this summer, Bryan and Benjamin Goodson wanted to get out and enjoy some of the beauty that this state has to offer. So they grabbed their fishing poles and went out in search of an Artic Grayling in the high mountain lakes of the Uintas. Their trip was going pretty well and they were catching a lot of fish, and during one of the lulls in between switching lakes, they cracked out the snacks and Ben grabbed himself a handful of raw almonds.
And then my chest started to hurt. And I was like, oh my goodness, what in the heck was I thinking? I cannot believe I did this to myself.
Bryan noticed that something wasn't quite right with his friend and asked him if everything was okay.
And then my chest started to hurt. And I was like, oh my goodness, what in the heck was I thinking? I cannot believe I did this to myself.
I ended up going, something's not right. Are you having an allergic reaction? And he said, yes. And I said, are you having a hard time breathing? And he said, I'm starting to a little bit. We were about 26 miles from cell service, so the drive took quite a while down the canyon. And I just kept asking him questions, and he kept kind of answering, and his answers kept getting a little bit slower and a little bit slower.
It got to the point I started to be non-responsive, but he could jar me a little bit to get me back into it. When we were probably 2-3 miles from town, I went out. I was gone. He couldn't even get me to respond. This whole time he's trying to drive a million miles an hour down windy roads with his friend in trouble next to him and remaining calm as a cucumber the whole time.
When they made it to Camas, an ambulance met them at a gas station, and Ben said he was just conscious enough to get onto the gurney, but that was it.
I mean, he really saved my life. He's undoubtedly my best friend for forever. I owe him my life.
I went walking back there, and he was sitting up on the table with his eyes open and breathing, talking a little bit, and I just told him, you have no idea how glad I am to see your eyes open.
Bryan is a corporal in the Logan City Police Department, and Ben says that because of his training as a police officer, he's here today.
I mean, we're in a society where, he saved my life. But you know what? Not just him. Police officers save society. It took a special individual to do what he did.
You just do your best and do what you can do, and that's pretty much what I did until I was left alone at the gas station. Then it all hit you what just happened, you know. He kept asking the doctor if he could go back fishing. He wanted to go back fishing.
I said, we should go fishing again, but Bryan was like, no, we probably should go home.
Now, it's really hard for me to believe that Thanksgiving is already here. And with everything that's happened this year, sometimes it's hard to remember all of those things that we should be so grateful for. But there is plenty out there to be very thankful for, and sometimes that gratitude can come in the most unlikely of places, like the intensive care unit at McCady Hospital. Grover Wilhelmsen is a retired orchestra teacher who owns the music shop in Hooper.
He's been involved in music since he was a little boy.
Last month he got the coronavirus, and after starting in with a bad cough, he ended up intubated in the emergency room. And while there, unable to speak, he wanted to express his gratitude to all those doctors and nurses who were helping him to heal. So, with his bow in hand and his violin shouldered, he was able to say thank you in his own special way.
It's his idea. He came up with it to be able to have his family bring in his violin and his viola to be able to play for us.
After a month in the hospital, Grover was moved to a long-term acute care facility and is expected to recover. And his family is hoping to have him home by Christmas. Big thank you to KSL TV's Andrew Adams for tracking down all of those interviews. Now, that about does it for this episode of Heart of Utah, and if you have stuck around to this point in the video, I want to thank you. There is a lot of negativity and divisiveness out there in the world today, and we want to make sure that we are spreading some goodness out into all of that nastiness. So, if you have a story that exemplifies everything that makes Utah so great, we want to hear about it. So, send us an email at heartofutah@ksl.com or tag us on Twitter. You can find us there at heartofut. Make sure you're also following along and like this page on Facebook. You can also find all of the good news that's happening around the state at kslnewsradio.com/heartofutah. There is also a very special segment that airs every Wednesday on KSL News Radio, so make sure that your dial is tuned to 102.7 FM or just ask your smart speaker to play KSL News Radio. Thank you once again for watching, and I hope that you have a very happy and safe Thanksgiving. I'll see you next week.